Alright guys, we're going to move on now to game number 2 in our JunkPost deck. This is going to be the opening hand, and it's pretty great. We got both of our post lands available to us. Evolving Wilds will help us search out colors as needed. We get a little draw off the Prophetic Prisms, as well as our Big Bad Crusher. So going to start out, put a Cloud Post into play. You want to have access to this mana as soon as possible, so because that comes into play tapped, you want to definitely get that into play, so you can get it untapped and going. Now my opponent starts out with turn 1 Sentinel. This is going to tell me that he is running the green Stompy deck. It is basically a green weenie deck that runs mostly little green creatures for cheap, as well as some pump spells, so you got to be aware of that. Aggro is not a great matchup. We're really going to need to use these Glimmer Posts effectively. We don't have a lot of options for killing creatures, so you got to be smart about not only trading away creatures, but how much life you can take when they attack as well. It's going to be very important to be a little bit, giving with your life, and in order to just get to that next turn and keep your board state where you want it. So draw into Expedition Map, and I have a couple options here. I could play Glimmer Post and either play and crack the map or get the map in the Prism. I decided what I was going to do is play the map off the Cloud Post and then use Evolving Wilds. I was currently sitting on a pretty much colorless mana base. I wanted to get a forest going as soon as possible, and because it's going to come into play tapped off of the wilds, I wanted to really make that play as soon as I could. And it's going to leave me kind of an open-ended play on next turn as well. So he attacks through with the Sentinel, and in comes the Ranger. Ranger is going to be another card that really you have to be smart about dealing with. It allows for some cool plays. It really helps out their mana base because they don't run very many lands. Draw into Wellspring, and this is really going to kind of reinforce the move I did. I'm going to play Glimmer Post to take me back up to 20. And I'm going to be able to play the Wellspring and the Prism. I could have cracked the map, but the Cloud Post is going to come into play tapped on my next turn anyways, and by doing this I'll be able to get this Rebirth into play on my next turn thanks to the Prism itself, and have some answers for these little creatures. May not be great answers, but they will be some blockers in one form or another. So he's going to attack through, and I'm going to have to take 3. He uses the Ranger's ability to return a land and be able to play the Shinin of Life's Roar. Now this is definitely another big creature that you have to worry about. It may only be a 1/2, but the fact that you have to block it causes all kinds of issues, and it's really one of the best ways for the Stompy deck to win is by forcing you to block it so its other creatures can get around you and do the final damage. Things work out really great for me here. I draw into Cloud Post that I didn't need to crack my map in order to get it. So I'm going to be able to put that into play to get my mana up. Not going to be at a point in time where I can play the Crusher just quite yet, but that's okay. We're going to be fine. We're at 17 life, and we're going to use the Rebirth here to sacrifice the Wellspring, draw a card, and get some blockers into play. When he attacks next turn, I am going to have to block the Shinin of Life's Roar, but that's okay because it should trade, and I have the option now to use the map to get a Glimmer Post. In this matchup, heavy mana is a very good thing, but you only really need about 2 Cloud Posts, and you'll see it as I play this, how I play this matchup. But whenever you have the opportunity to search for lands, now that I have my 2 Cloud Post base, I'm going to be searching up Glimmer Posts. Now, because it is aggro, getting the Glimmer Post into play is going to be a fantastic thing. It's going to definitely keep me ahead of my opponent's aggro, while at the same time pumping up my 2 Cloud Posts. So getting 4 Glimmer Posts onto play is my number 1 priority, since I do have 2 Cloud Posts in order to balance this out. Now, if we were playing this as a match, I did play these as single games, but I'm assuming that he does have Thermokarst in his sideboard, would cause me all kinds of issues as far as this strategy goes, but because it is kind of a game 1 scenario, you would definitely be able to stick to the strategy of only using 2 Cloud Posts and continually searching out Glimmer Posts with things like Reap and Sow, as well as Expedition Map. So he's going to go through that. He uses Vines of the Vastwood. I have to block his Life's Roar, so he's going to kill off all 3 of my tokens, and then he's going to be able to use the Hunger of the Howlpack here to turn that Sentinel into a 5/5 creature, and that's going to be a little troublesome. Nope, did not mean to fast forward that, but we are going to put the Glimmer Post into play. This gives us the opportunity to tap our 2 Cloud Posts to play the Crusher. causing my opponent very many issues, but at the same time leaving his mana available to use the Expedition map to search out my third Glimmer Post. The Crusher's going to be a great thing here because he is going to need to block with all his creatures. He's going to have to use some kill spells to kind of maneuver around it. He's only going to be able to kill it in combat because he is mono green, so he doesn't have any options as far as direct creature kill. So anytime he attacks, he could be bluffing. He is down to 2 cards in hand, but it is going to just say that he has the opportunity to make a play here. So he attacks with his 5/5, and I do try to call his bluff. He did actually have Vines of the Vastwood, which will put his Sentinel out of my creature's range and kill off my Crusher. So I did lose out on that a bit, but it does keep my opponent's hand down to 1. And I luck into a Fierce Empath. I definitely got some great draws with this, but at the same time, a little bit of smart play doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt. Sorry, jeez. He is down to 1 card in hand, and that's great. I'm gonna assume it's probably a land, or if it is a pump spell, it's not going to be too terrible, since I do not use a lot of creatures. I think I'm still gonna have an opportunity, especially now with the Empath. I can not only play this, but I have plenty of mana available to me to cast the Crusher that I search out with it. Being that this is aggro, you could also look to search out the Marauder to gain some extra life, but I really don't have artifacts to sacrifice. I don't have a lot that would be going away, so I would not really be gaining life off this. It's also more important at this point in time to get the Crusher out, because it's going to give my opponent a lot of trouble as far as what he may want to sacrifice to it, and how he would want to block. And you'll see how I think he makes the right play with how he decides to approach it. When I attack on my turn, excuse me, he does decide that he wants to sacrifice his 2 lands in order to block with all his creatures in hopes of killing off the Crusher. I think this is definitely the right play that he made. It's not going to help him in the end, because I do have 2 Reap and so it's going to cause him lots and lots of trouble. Let's take a second here real quick. You have to decide how to approach the damage on this. So the priority for targets are this. The first priority is the Sentinel. That's number 1 because it is the biggest creature. You're going to have the hardest time dealing with it. The second priority on your list is probably going to be the Life's Roar, because of this ability that you have to block it. If I do get to a point where I get a couple walls on the field, having to use all my walls to block this 1/2 creature is going to suck. So I want to get rid of that as soon as possible as well. Third is going to be the Ranger. It does allow for a lot of tricks, but my opponent being at only 1 forest, he's not probably going to have a lot of options available to him for those tricks. And last priority, of course, is going to be Young Wolf. You don't want to kill it. I'm going to do 8 damage. It's going to kill these first 3 creatures, and the 4th will live, especially because of the Life's Roar being a 1/2. But the most important thing here is you don't want to kill the Young Wolf because of the Undying. Not going to be a killer loss if you do, but your priority is definitely going to keep that at the bottom. So those all trade. I'm going to be able to cast Reap and so at this point in time. Still short on 1 green mana to be able to, I'll get this forest into play next turn to be able to cast multiple spells, but does draw into another forest, gets another wolf going, and decides to attack. I did decide to block and realized afterwards that it was probably a silly thing. I am at 20 life. Taking 1 damage is not really going to be anything too critical. At the same time, I managed to top deck into Swirling Sands, and I'm going to have the mana available here to cast Reap and Sow, and use that to get Grill's Turf. I talked earlier about using the 2 Cloud Posts and getting 4 Glimmer Posts. After that, my strategy goes to the 2 Grill's Turf, because these will allow me to bounce Glimmer Posts and replay those. Once I get all 4 of those, plus both the Turfs, then things are going to be good. So we're going to get that going as soon as possible. We're also going to be able to cast here the Swirling Sands by tapping out, leaving this Cloud Post available and not tapping that out. I'm going to be able to kill off the wolves. Only one of them is going to come back, so one has already died. And I did have the mana available to me to cast Mold Shambler as a blocker, but what I decided to do is, because I am so far ahead in life, I do have the Grill's Turf, I do get another Glimmer Post on the next turn. What I wanted to do is keep the Mold Shambler until my opponent got a forest, or some lists do run Bone Splitter. So I wanted to keep the Mold Shambler until I had a target for it. I have plenty of room to take some life, take some damage. It's going to be pretty easy for me to do that. So replay the Glimmer Post, get an expedition map, and now, like I said, I am going to search out my second Girl's Turf and be able to, play Glimmer Post over the next 2 turns as well. So attacking through again, I am at 30, plenty of room. I'm going to tap a Glimmer Post on this to make sure that I utilize the best of my mana before bouncing it with the Turf. Fierce Empath is going to get me a Crusher, and then the Turf is going to come down after that comes into play and bounce Glimmer Post. Now we're at a point in the time where my opponent is at only 1 creature. He does not have any lands, and he is facing down the Crusher. Definitely grounds for conceding. That Crusher is going to attack through on his next turn, and it looks like he's going to be forced to sacrifice the wolf to it. It's just definitely a bad situation to be in between all the Reap and Sows getting rid of his lands, as well as the earlier Crusher trading away all his creatures. So there you go. I just, with this matchup, the only thing I wanted you to take away from this video, if anything, is how to be kind of smart about your plays when it comes to dealing out combat damage. You saw that the 4-on-1 damage there, 4-on-1 creature state. So you want to definitely be smart about how you do that and how you approach that. Also, when you're getting these aggro matchups, getting the life gain out as fast as possible, definitely a plus as well. So there you go. Check out the other videos and check out the article when it goes up on Pure.